Are we recording? Ah,
Yep,
there we go.
has just started. Here we go. Before we get started, Chris, I'm going to make one of you my co-host. Collins, I'll make you the co-host just in case anything goes wrong.
Okay.
Okay?
Yikes,
Fantastic.
responsibilities.
Yes.
You can handle it, Chris.
Oh,
You can handle it.
awesome. Well, thank you everybody for being here. We are doing a webinar today on rethinking and retooling the final exam. I'm Bianca Rowden-Quince, faculty instructional designer at Skyline College and member of the distance education work group. Would my other folks introduce themselves?
Sure. I'm Kim Sashio Kent, and I'm the assistive technology specialist at the Skyline DRC, next year to become the Educational Access Center. So that will be very nice. And I'm also on the distance education work group.
Chris, you want to go?
Sure, I'll go. Hi, everyone. This is Chris Collins. I am the distance education coordinator here at Skyline, also teach history classes. And I'm excited to work with the distance education work group as we help faculty.
Chris Weidman, accessibility specialist for Skyline College. Work with CTTL and DRC. Kim, what's the new name?
Educational Access Center,
Thank you.
EAC.
What's the difference, if I can ask, between the DRC and the new
The
center?
word disabled isn't, or disability is not in the name.
The focus is on access instead of on disability and labels like that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. I'm going to move on to the next slide and we'll go ahead and get started.
All right, I think that's me.
Uh-huh.
All right, so the distance education work group, we've been doing a lot of things on Skyline's campus. We started off as a community of practice, and we were just trying to figure out ways to demystify online learning for our faculty, figure out what students were in need of. And so we've been continuously doing that. In this remote learning situation, we realize that faculty are struggling with a number of things. And one of those things is about the final exam. So as our campus and community respond to the global health crisis, instructors are working hard to make pedagogical shifts that meet the evolving instructional and institutional needs. Our fundamental mission is to educate our students. And in order to honor that commitment and preserve their educational access, we wanted to create this webinar for faculty as we prepare for our final exams and wrap up the semester.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris.
I guess it's me. Learning objectives. The thing to think about is develop a plan for your final exams. We have a hotspot. Oh, sorry. Explore your options for developing a final exam remotely. Discuss and for communicating your exam plans to your students. Like, how are you going to notify your students? Is it just going to be through Canvas? Is it going to be through email? Maybe you use both options. The more communication, the better. Next slide, please. So there's a framework we want to talk about. You want to create a plan to administrating the exam. You want to consider options for these final exams, and back to communicate the plan to your students. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the first step in the process is creating a plan. And really, what we're asking people to do is to think about the role of assessment in the course that you're wrapping up for spring 2020. As our plans for how the semester started have changed quite a bit. And so now is a good time to just sort of think about what do you need to do for the end of the semester to wrap up the course, and how can we create a final assessment that meets the needs of students and the outcomes of the course and doesn't make everybody crazy.
Although that might be too late for some of us.
Absolutely. So before sort of steamrolling ahead with how you were planning to do your final exam previously, if we were still in a face-to-face situation, we're challenging this group to think about what's the role of the final exam in your course in the first place, and what are you planning to assess? And so are you at a point in your course where you essentially have met your learning outcomes based on all the activities that you've had students do so far? And just thinking about that critically, which will help create a plan for what the final exam or the experience could or should be. And some considerations that the group would like you to think about are what potentially might need to be retooled. With remote learning and doing an exam on Canvas, is it an open book exam? Is it timed? Are there alternative means for assessment, such as a project or other things that you might be able to do? But ideally, we want people to be solid in what they're planning so that that can be communicated with students. And so our dean, Roland Moe, found this very interesting graphic. And so I'm going to sort of walk you through what we're seeing. So in looking at thinking about what is the role of the final exam in your class and what left do you still need to assess, the graphic says, so you need to put an exam online, right? So essentially we're in the online mode. So if you were planning to have a final exam, obviously in this situation, it can't take place face to face. So then the question is the way that this graphic goes is, have you achieved your course learning outcomes without the exam? So are you at a point in the semester where students have done pretty much enough to be able to assess whether or not they've met the learning outcomes? And so if the answer to that is yes, then you go this way, and there is the potential to do a smaller level assessment or reweight the final exam and beef up the weight of some of the activities that students have already done in the class. But if the answer to that is no, and a final exam is a really key component of your course, then the graphic moves you to the right where it says, can you redesign your final exam to meet the learning outcomes in an alternate format? Meaning, is there something else that you could do as opposed to having a formal exam? So if the answer is yes, then the graphic takes you to the right and gives you some suggestions. Student video presentations, reflection papers, culminating written paper, critical reflection of some kind. And if the answer is no, I absolutely need to keep my exam online, then it goes to, are you sure? And talks about some of the challenges we've already experienced with high stakes testing in online environments and what needs to be considered. So if that's still yes, then the graphic goes to the digitize section and then encourages you to think about what ways that your exam can take place online, whether that be multiple choice or short answer or using the LMS such as Canvas. Make sense to everybody? Nod. Okay, fantastic. All right, moving on.
Okay, so you're going to give a final exam in this environment, keeping in mind that everybody is struggling, students, instructors, etc. So let's consider some options for the final exam. And I really want to challenge you to consider flexibility and creativity and timing, honestly. Can we have the next one? I was just going to like click it, but I can't click it. So concepts to consider around this: timing. We really encourage you to give as much time as possible to your students. I also suggest giving them some agency in perhaps opening it the week before you normally would to let students decide when they're going to take it, when it meets their schedules, which are, as you know, completely upended right now. It's really, it's always important online to give our students agency, but right now it's absolutely crucial when so many aspects of our lives are completely out of our control. If there's any way you can give students choice in any way in your online course, that would be wonderful. Flexibility in administering the exams, timing, modality, we're going to go into that a little bit more. Low stakes versus high stakes. do you have to give one exam to rule them all? Or can you break up your assessments into smaller, lower stakes bits that gives students a little bit more flexibility? And creativity, allowing students to use some creativity in their responses, and varied assessments. If it's possible to do a little menu of choices for students, that's wonderful. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Absolutely.
So timing considerations, right? Everything's crazy. As I said earlier, please allow as big a window as possible for students to complete their final exams, if at all possible. For example, if you normally just have one or 2 days during finals week where you open those exams, just consider opening them the week before and closing them the very last moment, if at all possible. We don't want to make you crazy either. Next slide, please. And then student agency, that's a big thing, absolutely huge. We're all having a hard time concentrating, and our students are certainly no different than us. Please consider giving your students some freedom to design their own final assessment. That may or may not be possible depending on how large your class is, but by giving students this type of agency, you're encouraging creativity and critical thinking. And you're encouraging them to grapple with the course outcomes individually and also collectively. You could have groups work together to come up with final assessments, for example. Next slide, and then I think we move on to Chris Weidman.
Thank you, Kim. So one thing in the last 6-7 weeks we've been dealing with this whole closure of the campus and doing online is the administrators have said we need to be flexible, and even the governor. And this is if you want to take one word, one key word you want to come from this presentation is being flexible. There's a lot of great knowledge on this presentation, but we want to really, another way to increase your students' engagement is to honor the agency, just like Kim was mentioning it. We want to be able to, if your course requirement permits, you could give the students a choice to accept their current grade or have them complete a final exam, and that might in order them to improve their grade. This is a key aspect, and we really want to promote that if you're able to do that. Next slide, please, Bianca. Okay, I used to work with a DRC and Disability Resource Center. I forgot the name already, Kim, for the new name, but just think of a DRC student taking one of these online classes, but what about just a regular student taking an online classes? There's a lot of anxiety, and we want to mitigate, that's a $5 word for me, the anxiety that our students are dealing. Like I'm mitigating this, my 4 slides I have to deal with this presentation. But consider, Kim talked about this, we were like, replace your big, 200-point final with maybe 2 or 3 lower assignments. You could also break these assignments into different venues. Like one could be a short narrative or versus a multiple choice quiz. You could do a speech versus a short essay. I like this part, but they could have the students can choose, but also maybe have the responding to the same prompt. Thank you.
Excellent. So we wanted to offer some suggestions on creative assessments. So to help increase in student engagement and mitigate any anxiety, we wanted to make sure to offer a couple of suggestions. So in my teaching and learning, this list came from me. And so the first column on the left is sort of alternative presentation style types of items, such as having students do a TED Talk about a specific topic in your course that's been covered previously, either pre-COVID-19 or post. Having students do a short podcast or video blogs or vlogs. Teachbacks are really popular, meaning that their students are demonstrating knowledge about a specific topic by doing a short little presentation to the course. Individually, they can do that live. They can tape them and send them to you and share them maybe in a discussion board in your class. A newscast, I think that should have an S.
Oops.
Cast, that's okay. Would be really fun. I know that my education students love doing satirical comic strips about a particular concept in the class, like maybe something about Freud. I'm thinking about your psychology course, Tanya. Comic strip on Freud might be quite interesting.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Other items are like a brochure. So Shauna, I remember us talking last week around the human sexuality unit that you were about to engage in. So maybe students did like a little 2-page brochure or a 4-page 1111 where they're talking about sharing health and safety tips with regard to human sexuality. Internet resource list is a great one. So this is sort of paying it forward. It's maybe your students are collecting a resource list of sources on the internet that helped them along the way in your class that then you could use to provide as resources for the next group. A 5x5 journal for the course would be basically splitting a document into 5 pieces where students did like a structured reflection about 5 items that were really huge takeaways for them in the course and doing some critical reflection around that. Of course, a collage on a specific topic or a culminating experience in the course or wrapping up the course in 5 images, kind of like a Pechakucha style collage. That can be done digitally. People can do that in their home and then take a picture of it and post. A talk show segment. Some of our folks who are taking the debate course are going to be using this where 2 students have some topics and they'll be sort of interviewing each other and interjecting debate questions. Those of us who love graphic organizers, always a great way to help discern whether or not learning has taken place. Twitter boards are really popular right now, where students provide insight about a specific topic, or they reach out to researchers or people who are popular in their particular field and ask questions via Twitter. Service learning projects, that might be a little bit harder to execute.
I think so.
In the COVID-19 state that we're in, but also student created case study could work. So these are just some creative assessments that could take the place of a high stakes final exam.
Can I pop in real quick about the learning project? I have a colleague who is a professor at the University of British Columbia, and she teaches clinical assessments. And what she has her students do, it's online class, she has them volunteer to create a website or some sort of documentation or public facing information for whoever they're working with. So for the entire semester, they're working with, I don't know, a pregnancy clinic or something like that. So for their service learning project, they have to create this deliverable for them. So that's kind of a neat thing. She's doing that right now, actually.
Yeah, I know one of the English instructors has the students write a Wikipedia post about the novel that they read. So they have to summarize the novel and do a little critical analysis on the key elements of the novel and make connections to what's going on sort of in the news today. And that's going to serve as their final project. So this can go many ways, depending on what you think about and what is relevant to your course and your students. And I would just like to offer that all of these items can be curtailed to meet your SLOs. So we wrote them, so there's flexibility in doing that. So just wanted to make a plug for that. And moving on to the next slide. All right, so varied assessment concepts. So this is administering instead of administering like a high stakes final exam, that there might be other things such as a critical reflection on a topic that was learned in the course, or a critical reflection that connects topics from the class to students' lives and experiences. So students have gone through a lot as we have, and they're managing a lot with the new normal of their lives. And there might be some connection to your course curriculum that they could write about and tie it to themes that came up in materials that you've covered already. The last suggestion for a varied assessment would be maybe analysis of a case study. Like if there's a short case study in your field that's applicable, or even a case study that has to do with COVID-19, all of the socioeconomic issues, lack of leadership, and collective decision-making, meaning, you know, the state has to make a decision and then it trickles down to the counties and the schools. So there's a lot of rich content that could be used to get students to wrap up the courses just based on what's been going on right now. Do any of you have anything to add, Kim or Chris, about varied assessment concepts before we move on?
No, I think I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay.
One quick thing to point out, just to emphasize, as you said earlier, everything can be tied to SLOs.
Yes.
And when I teach my classes at the DRC, I'm working with a population of people who, many times my students have serious challenges. I never ever give them one long final exam on all of the SLOs. I break it into 3 very targeted assessments on each specific SLO. So you can make certain and cover everything, just don't have to throw it all of them at once.
Sure. Thank you so much for that, Kim. And so this slide is really about, so do you remember in the beginning where we were asking you what's the role of your final exam, and are you at a point in your course where you've actually met the outcomes already, being that we've been in class for 15 weeks now? So if you decide to forego your final exam, what are some other considerations that you might be able to do with that time that's scheduled already? Because remember, we have a final exam schedule that's been published in web schedule all semester, and really you could keep that time to do what we call sort of wrapping up your course on a really positive note, right? In light of everything that's happened, like let's send students off into the summer or wherever it is that they're going, feeling like they were cared for and that they got something out of the class despite all of the changes that we've had to make on the fly. So these are just a couple suggestions for how you might be able to use that final exam time that's already scheduled. And so this came from my kids' class who is in 3rd grade, is they held a virtual potluck to celebrate shelter in place. So they all essentially had lunch together and were on a Zoom call, and students got to sort of share, you know, what's going on in their normal and what they're looking forward to. In this case, maybe going into summer, creative ways that they're spending time with their families, shows they're binge watching, you know, et cetera, et cetera. The second is sort of tied to something we talked about earlier in the varied assessments, which is you could do a debrief of the semester, and maybe you do a set of sort of recommendations for the next group as a class, and you could do it live just like this, where people are developing tips for the next group that some of you will have either in summer or fall on how to get through the class. Other considerations are a virtual award ceremony. So this one is always pretty fun. So, you know, there's always that student who's like first to turn in assignments all the time. I'm looking at you, Kim.
Oh, gee.
You know, the someone who's, you know, creates really thoughtful discussion responses in your online course, or someone who's particularly helpful. So this could be, you could make it whatever you want, but you could essentially gather your class just like this and do some sort of virtual award ceremony as you feel appropriate. Also a show and tell of assignments and projects. So a lot of times students turn in things to you, meaning you, the instructor, but other students don't necessarily get to see them. So it might be an opportunity to invite students to share, you know, assignments or projects that they worked on that they're really proud of, as part of their wrapping up the course. And then we just wanted to sort of think about, are there any other ideas for if you're not going to have a traditional final exam, how might you use that time? I will open it up to the group to anyone who feels like they want to add anything.
I have an idea. This is
Sure,
Chris.
go, Chris.
So for my history class, what I decided to do is I'm not holding a final exam, but what I told my students is that what they're living through is a pandemic, and it's a once in a lifetime sort of event. And historians, we like primary sources. So people in the future are going to want to find out how people survived and what people went through as part of the pandemic. And so I encourage my students to post a video on YouTube, write something down in a journal or make a journal of all your different days in quarantine. And I'm not requiring them to submit it, but what I'm asking them is just to do that in hopes that future historians will be able to find it and then be able to write history based upon their experiences. So it's not a required final exam, but it's still connecting them to some of the major concepts we've covered in history dealing with primary sources.
Hey, Chris.
Thank you.
That's a great idea. I actually made my son on his spring break learn about the 1918. And we watched a YouTube video about 42.
It's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other ideas on how you might use your final exam time if you're planning to not have an exam? All right, I'm seeing head shaking. All right, moving on. All right.
Chris, this is you, I believe.
Sorry, I didn't have my mic unmuted. All right, last but not least is communication. It may seem obvious, but it's always important to state the obvious. We need to communicate our plan with our students, and the hope is to provide clear instruction for the final exam, include expectations, and then of course acknowledging that the students have been through a lot and celebrate their resiliency and dedication. Next slide, please. Thanks, Bianca. So our communication tips for sharing the information regarding the final exam with students is communicate your plan with students via email and also on Canvas. So we want you to do it in 2 different locations on Canvas, either via announcements or via the Canvas inbox. It's a great way to let the students know the information that they'll have to be prepared for in regards to the final exam. But just to make sure that all students get that information, we also encourage you to communicate your plan on WebSmart through the email portal. And so that makes sure that students, if they, for whatever reason, don't have everything set up in Canvas correctly, they still will get that information because they also have the WebSmart information coming through. The second thing in regards to communication is ask students to share their concerns or needs with you as soon as possible. So encourage them to be very proactive if they think they won't be able to make the deadline, or if something is going wrong and they need an extension, just encourage them to communicate sooner rather than later. Let the students know when and how they can expect their final exam project or grades. And so students often want to know where they can find their grades. And if you have it posted in Canvas, letting them know that you'll post it within 2 to 3 weeks will give them a time frame in order to prepare for a great score or not so great score. All great scores. And the 4th thing that we have on here is email a reminder before the exam or assessment. So you want to send out a message explaining the final exam ahead of time, but you also want to send out a reminder, just because sometimes students get really busy. I know a lot of my students are essential workers, and so they're working overtime. And so that reminder that, hey, you have a final exam that's going to close in 24 hours is something that really helps students. Reminding them, 2 hours before is also very helpful. It's about to close, please finish up. Next slide, please. In your communication, be sure to acknowledge the resiliency and dedication of your students. This whole semester, one of the terms that Bianca has been using in the CTTL is moving in a way of thoughtfulness and grace towards your students, understanding that just like we're all struggling with COVID-19 and dealing with the shelter in place, our students are also experiencing the same. And so just understanding that students going through this process and continuing their education, they deserve to be celebrated. Also, be sure to offer grace and flexibility and timing. Chris Weidman said that flexibility is the key thing to think about as we are developing our final exams and as we go through the semester, just trying to figure out how you can be the most flexible for your students. And then lastly, encourage your students to keep moving forward with their educational goals. It can be very depressing in this time period for our students. And so making sure that we encourage them to keep pushing forward in their educational journey and letting them know that we're there to cheer them on and support them as part of this process.
Thank you, Chris. I would also add that if students sort of don't know what the next step is in their educational goals, that the counseling department at Skyline College has been offering lots of online counseling drop-in appointments, so that if they need to check in with the counselor around what's next on their education plan, that they should do that, because as you know, registration for summer is open now. And if students have options that they'd like to move forward with, just so that they know, and fall will be opening soon. All right, it looks
Yay!
like one of our planned slides, but we wanted to open it up for questions, or if anyone wants to talk through a specific idea that they would like help with, we're here to give you collective brain power on figuring out what you're going to do with your final exam.
Hi, I'm Shauna. I hadn't even thought of final exams. I feel like I'm working week to week, which is cool. And so I came here for some ideas. I don't even have a plan. Oh, can you please go back? I'm not sure who spoke about this. It was a list of options instead of giving an exam.
Sure.
And I took a photo of it. Yes, right here.
Uh-huh.
You were talking about collages. I really like that idea. But in the process of talking about it, you may have named an application or something of that, and I didn't catch that information.
Oh, sure. I was just saying that people can do them a couple different ways. Some people might want to do it digitally, where they're taking images from the internet and putting them in a collage. The easiest way to do that actually is in PowerPoint.
Wow.
Yeah, you can pull up a blank slide in PowerPoint, and it allows you to insert images and flip them around. And they are treated as free form, and you can move them and position them. You can also create like text and colors and backgrounds in PowerPoint or Keynote. And then I was going to say, like a collage to me is like a tactile thing. So if there are people who actually would like to print out images, or if they have old magazines or something in their life that they could make a physical collage, then they can do that. And then what I was saying, Shauna, is that they could take a picture of it, and upload it. Or you could have people post their collages and have them post them and upload them in a discussion board, so that the whole class, if you want the whole class or small groups, could see other people's products and comment on them and have some dialogue about them.
Can I toss in another idea? What I use quite frequently in my classes is Google Jamboard.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Yes, that's great because it's a Google product in the Google Apps Suite. So students can work on them together, or they could easily present them in class. Very simple and easy to use and online.
And they have access to that through their MySMCC.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna, in case you didn't hear it, Google Jamboard.
Oh, you're gonna put it in the chat.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
It appears that my students in both of the classes I'm teaching may only have access to their phones right now.
Oh yeah,
in
that's
order
very
to
common.
take this class.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore I was struggling with the final.
Mm.
Yeah.
What other things might you recommend if a student really only has a screen yay size to work, right? So even though I like collage, I should give them the option of digitally and something they create physically.
Right. So,
right?
so yeah, a couple of options immediately come to mind. If they wanted to create something and take a picture of it, that's always a quick and easy thing. Another thing is, they've got their smartphones, they've got their built-in mics. They can record themselves doing a podcast or musing or whatever the heck they want to do. I actually, when I was teaching middle college, I had quite a few students who only had access to their phones, or they didn't want to use our Chromebooks because they're not cool. So they did. A couple of guys got really creative, and I had them for one of their tests, not the final. They decided to create a rap on career and college readiness, whatever the topic was in there. And they played the music softly in the background and then rapped over it and recorded it on their iPhone and then just sent me the note, the text note. It was hilarious, and it was great. Everything was in there, and they had a lot of fun doing it. And it was real easy for them. I think they used voice memo. They didn't even use anything fancy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of the things, so you're teaching health and safety, right, Shauna?
Yes.
So I don't know if this is an option, given we don't want anyone to break shelter-in-place rules, but if somebody has like a play structure or a playground that they can walk to, that they can sort of walk around and do a little video assessment of
that's a great one.
Level of health and safety of that particular playground and what some of the considerations might have been. Are there things, they could basically do like a critique or an evaluation of a play structure or any sort of place that's meant for children's activity. I don't know about you, but there's a park that my oldest son used to go to when he first started going to grade school that had this like 30-foot drop.
Oh God.
On the top of a slide.
Oh no. Oh no.
How old was he again?
Now, but at the time he was like 6. And because I taught the health and safety course before at another college, I was like, oh, they didn't consult any folks. They didn't talk to any parents.
Right.
That park has since been closed.
Okay.
And is under construction. So that won't happen anymore. Literally like a 30-foot drop off the back of a metal slide.
And then the question is, did the children fall into sand or were they on more of a rubbery mat?
Sand.
Oh, it just makes them tough. Don't worry about it. It makes
Right. Then the next question is, was it like sand on dirt or was it actually move your feet through it?
Right.
I believe there was one here in the park nearby when I was a child that had something like a 25-foot ladder that you went up. Yeah. And it was metal.
Yeah.
And it was hot.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think
that's a great idea. I really love that.
This could be a powerful tool and could be flexible and absolutely.
Oh, that actually brings up something when I was in grad school. I think it was Rick Ayers. One of his assignments was to he was looking he was introducing a unit on surveillance, and it was about like the life of the life of a high school kid, feeling under surveillance. So he had us go on walks in our neighborhoods and take pictures of every security camera that you see.
Right.
So many. And then of course we had to write a reflection on how did that make us feel when we suddenly became aware of being surveilled. Did we act differently? I'm taking a picture of the bank,
Sure.
So that was really, and I'm sure you could come up with all sorts of different creative ways of doing that. And hey, it'll be exercise and they can wear their masks, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, that could be cool.
I like that idea. Thank you, both of you.
Sure. Any other ideas or thoughts, or people wanting to talk through approach to the final? All right.
I have to write it down.
Of
That's the only
course.
way I'll
me
learn.
too.
Well, you've answered my question for this exact moment.
Okay, great.
And I like the idea of flexibility and what was the other one you mentioned?
Grace.
Grace, but the idea of saying that we're all in it together, and you said in a very nice way, but thanks for coming to class, thanks for showing up, thanks for participating.
Yeah.
Right.
Acknowledging their resilience.
Resilience.
And
right?
continuing their study, because so many students have dropped off.
Correct. I have students just like that.
Yeah, just MIA, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Can't blame them. Good knows what's going on in their lives, but
Right.
that means the people who stick with it are really going above and beyond right now.
That's very, very true. Awesome.
And the ones that also then tell you when there are problems, right? Are going even one more step.
Sure.
I'm finding. Yeah. Well, this was super.
Thank you so much.
I noticed that you have put out information about looking for your upcoming Zoom workshops. And I've gone to the calendar and I don't see much. So is it something like I should double check every day? Something I should look at every day, which is the CTTL calendar?
Sure, we put up workshops that we are doing.
Okay.
We also make connections to what the California Virtual Community College has been doing, and some other organizations like the Center for Urban Education and ACU. So we put up is whatever workshops are out there and that are free and easy for people to sign up for, and we'll continue to do that. We put it out every Monday.
Okay, Mondays.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, there was a lot going on in PD land. And I think that as we get to the end of the semester, things start to trail off a bit. But keep checking as we get them and they come in, we put them up, and they're there for people to engage with.
Wonderful. You mentioned two, one being the Center for Urban Education.
Sure.
And the other one was California
Virtual College. So that's the online education initiative. And so they're the folks who do a lot of the professional development in the California community colleges with regard to online teaching and learning.
And is it possible for me to just continue forward with the distance ed?
In what way? In what sense?
So I'm signed up for that, and I fell off the radar, just like my students.
Yes. Oh,
is
yeah.
it possible to move through the chapters and read more? I wasn't sure if, I continue to do that?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Good, because now I'm ready.
Yes, it will stay open in perpetuity. Like, we're not going to cut it off or close it in any way.
Okay.
So that resource is there for you.
Good, I'm ready. I'm emotionally like.
Fantastic, yes. Other things, the online teaching and learning conference that happens in conjunction with the California Virtual College, they have decided to move forward with the conference.
Okay.
But it will be online and there'll be sort of minimal offerings, but that's happening the second week of June.
And it'll be free,
And
by
it
the
will
way.
be free.
Yes.
Yes. And so that's called the Online Teaching Conference, and we'll be sure to advertise that.
Okay.
And make sure that the word gets out for folks to do that, because it's usually not free and it's usually a traveling thing. So it'll be a great opportunity to connect with folks across the state in the California community colleges, as well as attend some webinars about all things online.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be here.
Yeah.
I
know.
mean,
What else you got to do?
Where are we going to go?
I was going to drive cross country, but I'm here now, so we're good.
Yes. Chris, do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I just think Chris's desk is much cleaner than mine.
Thank you. Yes, I have nothing to add, but I just wish everyone the best of success as you try to wrap up this semester.
Absolutely. And if you want to talk through something more, I put the slide up that's got the email address that we're all checking regularly. Reach out to us at skylinecttl@smccd.edu, and we will get back to you, and we can provide some one-on-one support with getting ready for finals if you need it.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having this presentation.
Absolutely.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.